And next up, we have our boy John KREESE. John KREESE, that's right. War veteran, original binary brothers of Vietnam days. Now, in this video, like in the previous ones, I'm going to be talking a bit about what I thought of KREESE's journey throughout Season 4, where I think he's going in Season 5, and a lot of the seeds that have been planted for where his story will end up, and for a lot of the seeds that have been paid off, which I rightly called as the journey went along. And I just want to start out the gate. Cast your minds back to Season 3 when that dropped. And when they started showing Betsy flashbacks and the reason why KREESE wanted to go to Vietnam and, you know, be a soldier, defend his country and be a hero, you don't give that kind of story detail to a character if you're not going to give them some moral grey centre. Then you go further back into Season 2 when he says to Johnny in the homeless shelter, I don't think I can ever redeem myself. Along those lines. He has a very heartfelt conversation with Johnny. And that is absolutely vital to the way this season plays out. From the moment he calls Silver to Silver hanging up on him, which was, you know, kind of funny in isolation. But there's like this sort of tug of war going on this season. As much as John cares about Silver and he'll always, you know, be loyal to his brother because they, you know, there is a bond that is forged in war between people that is irreplaceable, as you've seen in Karate Kid 3 with these two. But his whole reason for converting Robbie, for all intents and purposes, to the dark side was to get to Johnny. He sees Robbie as a means to get to Johnny. Now, it doesn't mean that he doesn't care about Robbie. It's just that Johnny is his primary target. Johnny is the son that I'd say he's always wanted, and Johnny has looked at KREESE like a father figure, and in a very twisted kind of way, they see each other as father and son. And Robbie is the third in the next generation. 3 generations of Cobra Kai, exactly as KREESE put it. And it's all sunshine and roses for KREESE at the first part of the season. He's like, yeah, Terry, come back, you know, buddy, we can do this together. And then as time starts to go along, and in my Silver video that I got coming up, the reason KREESE is turned into the police by the end of the season is actually his fault. It's actually his fault. Now, let me explain. Throughout this season, there was one character at the start of the season who I'd say was probably the most balanced kind of character that I think that we've ever seen in the show. And that is Silver. Silver's first few episodes were completely balanced. He understood A from B, and you could see the progression. And that, you know, like I said before Season 4 dropped, don't be surprised if Silver's a changed man, because he's found clarity, as he puts it. He's found himself a new life. He's found himself a fresh beginning. He got his ass into therapy. He changed things. He's not on the drugs anymore. But then as the season progresses, he just starts getting chipped away by KREESE. Is it any wonder why Terry Silver reverted back to his previous state, if not worse, to the point where he turns on his own friend? And it goes back to what their little bickering back and forth was about everyone has a weakness. And there's that moment where they're using students against each other in the dojo. Now, while you could argue the merits of Terry Silver's intentions being a bit, you know, hey, KREESE, I'm taking control. Maybe Terry was just having fun. And maybe KREESE just misread this sign completely and took it as Terry trying to basically jump rank and take control of the ship. So what does KREESE do? He doesn't think about it and, you know, have a conversation with him. What he does is he starts digging up the past. He starts rehashing the old memories that Terry Silver has dealt with. He starts bringing those back to the forefront, pushing them in Terry's field of vision. And fantastic acting by Thomas Ian Griffith. What a performance. His facial expression alone tells you how much that hurt him. That put him right back to square one. From then on, it was just a descent into darkness, and KREESE was the catalyst for that. For the rest of the season, Terry was fine. You know, he went and met with Daniel, he tried apologizing. Daniel, you know, basically said, hell no, I'm not listening to you. And then you have a situation where KREESE is like, okay, they're attacking our students, why don't we attack them? And Terry's like, that's not what we need to do. That's not why I came back. I came back for a better reason. And this is where I completely, if you guys haven't seen the video done by Ken Cole, shout out to him, but he did a video on Terry Silver, and he said it perfectly, that KREESE bringing him back is a double-edged sword, and now we've seen it come to fruition. As I've said, you don't give flashbacks like Betsy and all that kind of stuff of young KREESE, and not do anything with it. they've started to do something with it. Now, at the end of the season, he gets turned into the police for something he didn't do. Obviously, at some point or another, he's going to get out of prison, or, you know, he could have a prison fight. He'll get out of prison, and the rest will be history, and he'll be back to fighting ways. But before he even joins Daniel and Johnny in the fight, I could see him trying to take control of Cobra Kai first. I could see a Cobra Kai civil war about to happen. And Johnny is going to be busy trying to find Miguel in Mexico with Robbie. They're going on that journey. Daniel is now with Chozen, and they're on that path. And then you've got Tori, who's now dealing with the fallout of the All Valley, and how does she go about things. So I think Silver and Kreese are going to be at the forefront next season. And you're going to really start to see these... It's almost tragic. It's a tragedy. These two are best friends. They're brothers. A brotherhood that was forged in war. You know, that's something that you can't replace. You can't replace that with anyone, because there's a level of brotherhood that is achieved in military that cannot be trumped. But Terry reverting into his previous state, and now worse, sees Kreese as his weakness. And Kreese, this whole season, has just been unknowing about all of this. It's only when it gets to the All Valley, he starts to really realise, man, I've been a bit of a douche. I've been a bit of a douche to people. You know, he looks at Johnny, in one of my favourite moments of the season, where they're giving Tori the pep talk before a final point, and, you know, Kreese is looking at Johnny and remembering the flashback of what he did to Johnny back in, like, the 1980s, and then he's like, let her do what she wants, yada yada yada, score builds, brilliant scene, and gives Tori the motivation that she needs to go on and win it. Now, you can argue the merits about Tori winning it legitimately, but at the end of the day, I think we can all agree Tori still deserved to get the trophy in some kind of way. But I think the heartbreaking thing here is, as much as Silver is indebted to Kreese for saving his life, Silver's got a point. Crazy or not, you know, how many times are you going to throw that in my face before you expect us to be square? And it's the moment where Kreese is like, I am your strength, and Terry's like, yes! There it is. Because now, Terry's in a headspace where he's like, look, I've tried helping you on more than one occasion. I've funded your business multiple times. I've offered you dojos galore. I've offered you glory. And I've come back not to rehash the mistakes of the past, but to do better. And I genuinely believe this. Silver would not have had to pay the ref to give them leniency if Kreese had just let Silver follow through. Silver was on the path to win this whole All Valley, and I guarantee you Robbie and Tori would have probably come out with the win. But because of the sins of our fathers and Kreese bickering with him, then that filtered down into Robbie, and that created the opening for Robbie and Kenny to start having a bit of a spat, as was in the All Valley when you have master and student beating each other up. You know, and then he says, are you fighting your friend or your opponent? He's not talking about Robbie and Kenny, he's talking about him and Silver. There's like a mental tug of war going on. From the halfway point onwards, there is a mental tug of war going on. And it's such a shame, because these two, if they'd have just worked together properly, and if Kreese had just listened to Silver, I firmly believe Robbie and Tori would have come out with the wins, and Cobra Kai would have been victorious without the referee's help. I genuinely believe that. I really do believe that. Now, they still got the win, but Silver had to pay the ref to ensure that they basically did it. And then as the season progresses, Silver starts regressing into that state. And worse, especially when he starts beating up Stingray in a scene that looks like it's out of the Joker, and he's drinking and he's throwing the bottle everywhere. And then he's teasing Johnny, you know, he's talking to him on the security camera like it's a horror movie. Then he lures Johnny to the old dojo, starts assaulting him. And in that moment, Terry feels betrayal. Because he was like, okay, you brought me back. I thought we were going to be in this together, you know, like the old days. But you didn't bring me back for that. You brought me back to get at Johnny. That's exactly what you did. You didn't have Johnny. Because think about it. He didn't think about Silver until Johnny joined Daniel. He didn't think about Silver at all. Oh, now I'm not saying he doesn't care about Silver. I'm just saying his focus was Johnny. And obviously that hurt Kreese. Johnny going to Daniel, his enemy. So he's like, okay, who else do I know? Let's call Silver. Silver feels used. He feels like a pawn. He feels like, you know, well, why did you call me back? It wasn't for the glory days. It wasn't because we're brothers or whatever. You did it to get back at Johnny. And he's your weakness, and you're mine. It's almost heartbreaking, the way things have gone between Silver and Kreese. And there's no version of this where I see both of them riding out into the sunset, happy ever after. you know, bros, you know, in arms. I don't see that now. I think there has been irreparable damage that's now been caused. And KREESE is at fault of that. KREESE is absolutely at fault of that. But one thing I did like about this season, because in Karate Kid 3, when Silver was brought in, KREESE took a backseat. KREESE was like the co-pilot. You know, he wasn't even the co-pilot. He was the flight attendant. Like, he was literally the flight attendant. In this season, even though Silver's brought in and Silver is leading with authority, KREESE is like, hey, I am Cobra Kai. Listen to me. And then that obviously fuels his thing of like, hey, you're trying to jump rank? You know, that's one thing that the show has done well that Karate Kid 3 didn't, in my opinion. But I think it was completely unnecessary of KREESE to really bring this memory up to Terry Silver, and the pain in his eyes when he remembers the image, he remembers the memory of being scared in that pit environment. This is KREESE's fault. Ultimately, he shouldn't have done it. And Silver, again, would have led them to victory without that. But I think, aside from Silver, KREESE this season, his care for Robbie and Tori was solidified. It was cemented. And as soon as Robbie was teaching the class and Tori flips Robbie over and he's like, enough in my office, he asks her about her mother, it's because he cares. He does care about her. And he cares about Robbie as well. But I think that's probably all he cares for in that dojo. I think Kyler he doesn't really care about, but he sees Kyler as an asset. He sees him as a weapon. And he likes using Mr. Park, as he would put it, the same way he would use Hawk. Basically as the lackey, the guy to do all the labour, pretty much. Anytime Kenny was trying to join the dojo, he put Kyler forth. But regards to Robbie and Tori, I think his heart belongs, you know, it sounds cheesy, but his heart belongs in their best interests. And that's where the conflict comes from for his character. And I think you're really going to start to see a progression for John KREESE, where he's the Miyagi of the show. Not that he'll ever be Miyagi, but what I mean is, he's that elderly figure. He's the one that should be the wiser one. He's the one that should have the wisdom. And the heartbreaking thing is, that's what Terry Silver said to him. Terry said, we should be wise, learn from our mistakes. We're now in Miyagi's position. We should be wise. And KREESE puts him right back in that state. If you want me to be honest, KREESE was asking for Silver to do that. And it's heartbreaking. But what an arc for KREESE this season, because not only does it lay the foundation of where things can go from here, it pays off so much from the previous seasons. And there's not only just the mental tug of war between KREESE and Silver going on, there's the emotional journey of when, after Miguel hurts his back, he goes to see Johnny and Miguel and asks if the boy's alright. When would KREESE have done that in the last few seasons? You know, it's crazy the amount of progression he got. And I'm excited to see where he goes from here. Ladies and gentlemen, jump in the comments section down below. Let me know what your favourite KREESE moment was this season. Where do you think he's going to go? Do you think the season done a good job of highlighting the things that have been brought up in the past couple of seasons? And one thing I will say is, going forward, it's almost a shame that it took to the All Valley for KREESE to realise the mistakes he's made along the way. And it's almost the reason why Robbie turned on Johnny and Daniel, because he felt like a pawn. He felt like a chess piece that was being used in a tug of war. And that's exactly what Terry Silver feels like between KREESE and Johnny. A game of tug of war. He's just a piece that moves around the chessboard. Now, obviously, John cares about him, but Terry feels like used. He feels like, oh, so you just, you know, what, you just want me to keep repaying the debt? You don't actually care about me, kind of thing? You know, it's a very slippery slope. I do love his scene, just before I end, I do love his scene with Amanda. That was so well done, and that set Amanda up for her great arc this season, which I've talked about. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out. But one thing he says that I absolutely love is, I respect you defending your daughter, which is what any mother should do. Bang on. But he gives her the details that Tori doesn't have a mother that's capable of looking after her. You know, he allows Amanda to go on that arc. He sets that up for her. If that conversation doesn't happen, maybe Tori and Sam's potential rivalry being squashed, that can't happen either. So we've got to shout out to KREESE on that one. Shout out to KREESE on that one. And for the first episode or so, when he goes to confront Terry again at the rich house, and there's all that, like, funny, you know, stuff at Terry's new complex, it is funny. It's kind of hilarious. He's like, something I can help you with? Karate is not a phase. It's a way of life. And he says to Terry later on, because the Terry Silver I knew would have roundhoused Lord Four Eyes there for calling Cobra Kai adorable. Guys and girls, I will see you in the next video soon. I've got a couple more characters to do. And then, as expected, once I've talked about each character, I'm going to be talking about scenes, I'm going to be talking about moments. Like I did for Season 3, I've already had people messaging me to talk about moments and what I think. There are some things I really am excited to talk about. There's a lot of, there's a lot of things I want to talk about. But, for now, jump in the comment section down below. Let me know your favourite Kreese moment this season. Let me know where you think he's going to go from here. And can we get Kreese in prison with Trey and Cruz, have them come back? You know, I know I've been asked if Dutch could come back. I don't know, I don't see it, but I do see Kreese getting at least a jail fight in. Like, yes please. Absolutely. And as this is a Kreese video, let's do a... Karate is not a phase. It's a way of life. That'll do.